Alligator is a 1980 American monster movie, directed by Louis Teague with a screenplay by John Sayles. It stars Robert Forster, Robin Riker, and Michael V. Gazzo. It follows the attempts of a police officer named David Madison and a reptile expert named Marissa Kendall to stop a deadly giant alligator that is killing humans in the sewers of Chicago. Creepshow is a 1982 horror anthology film with elements of black comedy directed by George A. Romero and written by Stephen King. The film's ensemble cast included Hal Holbrook, Adrienne Barbeau, Fritz Weaver, Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson and D. Dead Buried is a 1981 horror film directed by Gary Sherman, starring Melody Anderson and James Farentino. With a screenplay written by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, the movie was initially banned as a video nasty in the UK in the early 1980s, but was later acquitted of obscenity charges and removed from the Director of Public Prosecution's list. Bad Taste is a 1987 splatter science fiction horror comedy film directed, written, produced, photographed, co-edited by and co-starring Peter Jackson, who also made most of the makeup and special effects. Evil Dead 2 is a 1987 American horror comedy film directed by Sam Raimi and a parody sequel to the 1981 film The Evil Dead. The film was written by Raimi and Scott Spiegel, produced by Robert Tapert, and stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams. The Evil Dead is a 1981 American horror film written and directed by Sam Raimi and executive produced by Raimi and Bruce Campbell, who also stars alongside Ellen Sandwich and Betsy Baker. The Evil Dead focuses on 5 college students vacationing in an isolated cabin in a remote wooded area. Friday the 13th is a 1980 American slasher film directed by Sean S. Cunningham and written by Victor Miller. The film concerns a group of teenagers who are murdered one by one while attempting to reopen an abandoned campground, and stars Betsy Palmer, Adrienne King, Harry Crosby, Laurie Bartram, Kevin Bacon, Jeanine Taylor, Mark Nelson and Robbie Morgan. City of the Living Dead is a 1980 Italian horror film directed by Lucio Fulci. It is the first installment of the unofficial Gates of Hell trilogy, which also includes The Beyond and The House by the Cemetery. From Beyond is a 1986 American science fiction body horror film directed by Stuart Gordon, loosely based on the short story of the same name by H.P. Lovecraft. It was written by Dennis Powley, Gordon and Brian Yuzna, and stars Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, Ken Foree and Ted Sorrell. Maniac is a 1980 American exploitation slasher film directed by William Lustig and written by Joe Spinell and C.A. Rosenberg. The plot focuses on a disturbed and traumatized serial killer who scalps his victims. The Funhouse is a 1981 American horror film directed by Tobe Hooper. It was written by Larry Block and stars Elizabeth Berridge, Kevin Conway, William Finley, Cooper Huckabee, Miles Chapin, and 2-time Academy Award nominee Sylvia Miles. Humanoids from the Deep, also known as Monster in Europe and Japan, is a 1980 American science fiction monster movie starring Doug McClure, Ann Turkle, and Vic Morrow. Roger Corman served as the film's uncredited executive producer and his company New World Pictures distributed it. Fright Night is a 1985 American horror comedy film written and directed by Tom Holland and produced by Herb Jaffe. It stars William Ragsdale, Chris Sarandon, Roddy McDowall and Amanda Bearse. The film's plot follows young Charlie Brewster, who discovers that his next-door neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, is a vampire. The Howling is a 1981 werewolf-themed horror film directed by Joe Dante. Based on the novel of the same name by Gary Brandner, the screenplay is written by John Sayles and Terrence H. Winkless. The original music score is composed by Pino Donaggio. Pumpkinhead is a 1988 American supranational horror film. It was the directorial debut of special effects artist Stan Winston. While Pumpkinhead received mixed reviews, the film has built up a cult following in the years since its release. Scarecrows is a 1988 horror film written and directed by William Wesley. The film centers around a group of mercenaries who have hijacked a plane. After one of their number escapes with the money, they land near a farmhouse surrounded by scarecrows. The House by the Cemetery is a 1981 Italian supranational horror film directed by Lucio Fulci. The film stars Catriona Michel, Paolo Malco, Ania Peroni, Giovanni Frezza, Sylvia Colatina and Dagmar Lissender. The Thing is a 1982 American science fiction horror film directed by John Carpenter, written by Bill Lancaster, and starring Kurt Russell. The film's title refers to its primary antagonist, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates other organisms and in turn imitates them. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a 1986 American horror dark comedy slasher film, directed by Tobe Hooper. It is a sequel to the 1974 horror classic The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also directed and co-written by Hooper. Night of the Creeps is a 1986 American comedy horror written and directed by Fred Decker, starring Tom Atkins, Jason Lively, Steve Marshall and Jill Whitlow. The film is an earnest attempt at a B-movie and a homage to the genre. Motel Hell is a 1980 horror comedy film directed by Kevin Connor and starring Rory Calhoun as farmer, butcher, motel manager, and meat entrepreneur Vincent Smith. It is often seen as a satire of modern horror films such as Psycho and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a 1984 American supernatural slasher horror film written and directed by Wes Craven, and the first film of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. The film stars Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, Roan Blackley, Amanda Wyss, Jesse Garcia, Robert Englund, and Johnny Depp in his feature film debut. Reanimator is a 1985 American science fiction horror comedy film loosely based on the H.P. Lovecraft episodic novella Herbert West's Reanimator. Directed by Stuart Gordon, it was the first film in the Reanimator series. An American Werewolf in London is a 1981 horror comedy film written and directed by John Landis, and starring David Naughton, Jenny Agutter, and Griffin Dunn. The film starts with two young American men, David Kessler and Jack Goodman, on a backpacking holiday in England.